Wow, how time flies. Just 10 short years ago, Seattle and King County came out and said the homeless crisis is so bad here, we have to declare a state of emergency. And of course, 10 years later, the homeless crisis is even worse. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. And in fact, Future 42 had a hilarious, actually tragic and sad, but hilarious cartoon on this very subject that was just so spot on. Now, I remember this press conference. I'm going to play a bit from you in a moment. I mean, I was a fairly new TV reporter in Seattle. I'd been in Seattle for, maybe 4 years. And I remember when former Seattle Mayor Ed Murray came out and said in this very dramatic fashion, you know, what we all saw, which is homelessness is getting really bad and we have to do something about it. So we're going to declare a state of emergency. And then after he did that, he put out this really sappy, dramatic video.
This morning at 8:31, I signed a proclamation declaring a civil state of emergency in the city of Seattle in response to the growing homeless crisis in our city. We are in a moment in our history where decades of service cuts, growing income inequality, and the untreated issues of mental health and drug addiction has finally resulted in a human crisis seldom seen in the history of our city. And together, I am sure that we can lead the nation in finding a way forward.
Or not. Or not. I hate to laugh about it because at the time he was right. It was a human crisis that our city had not seen. And at least at the time, Ed Murray was able to, for all his flaws as mayor and as a human being, at least at the time, then Mayor Ed Murray was able to acknowledge at least a couple of the real reasons why our city was facing such a crisis, an untreated mental health crisis and an untreated addiction crisis. And again, that was in 2015. It was really before, at the time it was heroin. At the time, it was a heroin crisis that we were in, and that was predominantly what you saw people out on the streets addicted to. And then things got even worse because then fentanyl came into the picture. It was far more deadly in far smaller doses. And so our homeless crisis only got worse and worse and worse. And it wasn't just Seattle. Dow Constantine, a fearless leader of King County for 16 years before he got a promotion to be paid even more after failing, he put out on the same day a proclamation of an emergency. And he talked about how many homeless people there were in the county at the time. And I look at these numbers now. Again, this is from 10 years ago, where he says in 2015 alone, nearly 10,000 people are experiencing homelessness on any given day. It's like, oh my gosh. God, if we had 10,000 people now in the county, we'd be like, wow, we are really making progress. But back then, 10,000 was considered so bad, it had to be an emergency. And for the record, it was. But everything they did, the city of Seattle and King County, under Democratic leadership, from then until now, 10 years later, everything they've done has made it worse. And they believed that by declaring a state of emergency and spending more money to fix the problem, they thought, well, for sure that'll make it better. But of course, as we know, that created the homeless industrial complex that we see today, where more money only fuels the crisis. More money has led to a situation where this is so profitable for the nonprofits who work in this space that they will never fix it because they never want to see the check stop. Our friends over at Change Washington did an article, it's great, detailing the timeline and all the failures that have led up to this point. It's called Housing First in Washington, a decade of failure and tragedy. And they detail some of the numbers here. Homelessness in King County has risen 68% from 2015. And I mean, for that sad video Ed Murray put out talking about the depth of a human crisis that we've never seen before, I wonder if I could go back in time and tell him, hey, 10 years from now, it'll be 68% worse. What he would say about it. They say Seattle and King County has become a magnet for attracting America's homeless. A recent Discovery Institute survey found only 19% of those experiencing homelessness in King County attended high school here. They are attracted to the region due to the 5,000 services provided to them and the lax laws regarding drug use and encampments, and that's a no-brainer. You want to declare an emergency on homelessness, yet in the meantime, you've basically de facto decriminalized drugs, made it more difficult to remove encampments. It's like everything they've done, of course, it's designed to make it worse. Like no sane person would think any of this stuff would make it better. It says, led by King County, Washington State has the highest number now of chronically homeless people in the entire country. Both King County's All Home Project and the King County Regional Homelessness Authority's Partnership for Zero were expensive, failed projects that wasted resources and failed to remove homeless individuals. And I think that's good to point out is not only did you have this larger homeless emergency that not only failed to yield any results, made the crisis worse, in the last 10 years, you've had all these individual side projects. Like they mentioned there, the Partnership for Zero. This was like rich companies that even came in and said, we'll put a bunch of money and in a year's time, we're going to eliminate downtown homelessness. And what happened? It didn't matter. Homelessness got even worse because their solutions weren't solutions at all. It says the number of annual homeless deaths have risen more than 500% since 2015. Again, go back to that sad, sappy video from Ed Murray. Oh, it's a human crisis. Yeah, well, everything you did from then to now in 10 years has led to a 500% increase in the number of annual deaths of homeless individuals. And yet we continue to elect the same people. We continue to believe the same people when they tell us that, oh, I have the solutions. I'll fix this. They belong to the same political party. They belong to the same progressive movement. Change Washington got into some of the lack of accountability that's led to this place. And that's the only explanation, right? Is the only way you can have a situation like this, where you've spent billions and billions of dollars on a problem only to make it worse, is a lack of accountability. Because in any private sector, anything, if you spent billions of dollars towards solving a problem and the problem got exponentially worse, the money would be pulled like that. And you'd go down a completely different path to try to fix it. But not in the public sector where it's your money and they don't care about your money. They don't look at it as actual money that you worked hard for and they just piss it away. So they said an audit revealed that massive fraud has likely taken place with the distribution of $1.8 billion in annual grants from the King County Department of Community and Human Services. Not a surprise there. A Discovery Institute study recently found that the King County Regional Homelessness Authority paid 17 organizations more than $1 million to provide emergency housing, and only 5 of them submitted reports about what they did with the money. Can you imagine getting $1 million of taxpayer money and you're not even required to submit a report about what you did with the money? And we're surprised that things haven't gotten any better. They also talk about a new report from the Capital Research Group that details how violent extremist groups like Antifa have infiltrated local homeless organizations and have become recipients of taxpayer money that is meant to help those who are homeless. This was brought up during my roundtable on Antifa at the White House, where you have these organizations like Stop the Sweeps that are Antifa aligned, that go out there and physically try to block police and city workers and county workers from removing deadly, dangerous homeless encampments. Gee, I wonder why. Because they're anarchists. They want like a complete demise and destruction of civilized society. So of course they want people living on the streets in filth and squalor. And then they also mention in here our whistleblower report, which has to do really with housing, right? We're so concerned. Housing, they say it's a housing issue. Housing is so expensive. So we've got programs like the one we covered in our whistleblower report. And what are they doing? Well, they're just spending the money on themselves. They're just helping their friends and their allies. Imagine if we had even basic level accountability for the money that's spent on homelessness. Imagine if we looked at a service provider and said, we gave you X amount of money. These were our expectations. Here's what you did. So now you're not getting money again. Or if you spent the money on things you shouldn't have, we're doing clawbacks, we're taking that money back. And you're going to have to find a way to pay it back to us. Why can't they do that? Why is that really asking so much? That's like base level expectations for anyone contracted with a government entity that's spending your money. And of course, what is the overarching reason why this has been such an epic failure? You know what it is. I know what it is. I say it all the time. You could probably say this sentence with me. We cannot solve a problem that we refuse to properly identify. And in the homelessness space, we have elected leaders who for years have continued to perpetrate the lie that the homeless crisis is what, Dow Constantine?
We know too well that many of our neighbors simply do not have a safe place to call home. While many would like to argue otherwise, homelessness is at its core a housing issue. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's not. And, again, I keep saying I should stop calling it homelessness. It's a drug crisis. It's a drug crisis, but it results in people being out on the streets, suffering in filth and squalor, and ruining the quality of life for everyone. So you have them pushing this lie, and it is a lie. It's not just a difference of opinion. It's a lie that this is the result of people who don't have a house and don't have a place to live. And we know that's a lie because in the low-income apartments that we spend millions and billions of dollars on, what happens? Well, people die in there too. And they just turn them into de facto drug dens. You haven't improved anyone's circumstances. You haven't dealt with the underlying reason why they were living on the streets in the first place. They're drug addicted, they're mentally ill, or both. And until we have a radical shift in both our approach, but also how we characterize the problem, 10 years from now, we'll be talking about the 20-year anniversary of the declaration of a homelessness state of emergency, and we'll be talking about how it's gotten even worse. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. And this is certainly one of those areas where just going on your own social media pages, in your own circles, your own family and friends, and explaining to them why homelessness has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. That is one way that you can turn your frustration into action, because we have to get people to start thinking about this differently and start understanding that the party that got us here will not get us out of it. The party that calls this a homeless crisis does not deserve $1 of our money to try to fix it, because they won't identify what the problem actually is.